Hello, and welcome to the Hot Corner Podcast, powered by Easton. And now to our hosts, Brittany Heil and Matt Williams.
Hi, and welcome to the Hot Corner Podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Heil.
And I'm your co-host, Matt Williams.
Today, we have one passionate coach about the game and working hard. What's great about this coach is she is a Lenexa, Kansas native. She went to Shawnee Mission West High School, and so we're bringing one of our own onto our show, and we could not be more excited. She was a 4-year starting catcher at Drury University, finished her career ranked first in Drury history in 6 offensive categories, and then continued to the journey after school to where she's now the head coach at Pitt State since 2008.
And that is Coach Ashley Balazs. So we are super excited about her. I mean, our conversation, we cover a lot of ground. We talk about passion for the game. We talk about things that the youth parents and coaches and players should focus on. We get into some recruiting nuts and bolts and really just try to cover all the bases for you with Coach Balazs. And so she's doing some awesome things. She's got a big heart for her athletes, and we are super excited to bring this interview to you.
So pull up a chair and listen closely to what Coach Balazs has to say. Hi, Coach Balazs. Thanks for joining us today on the Hot Corner Podcast. We're thrilled to have you on here. It's been a joy talking to you leading up to this. So we just want to check in now with you and see how you've been doing, how your team's been doing during the stay-at-home order and season being unexpectedly canceled.
It was a roller coaster of emotions, and I think the hard part is we all went through different emotions at different times. So how do we manage that? So just for me personally, when it first happened, I was staring at a white wall, and that's just the honest truth. I mean, I wasn't really in a good place. Part of that, we started off really rough, just didn't get the results that we wanted. Then we went on and won 8 out of the last 12, kind of gave 2 games up in there. So, played really well, 10 out of 12 games. We had our pitcher, our number 1, who was coming alive, threw 3 shutouts. Our bats were coming alive with some runners in scoring position. Just really, really good feel for the team. So, you guys know how baseball and softball go. When you hit your stride, you really hit it and it takes off. And so we kind of felt like we were right there. We'd been on the road for X amount of weeks, just battling that, playing tough competition. And, Thursday we get the cancellation for the weekend for Friday, which was our home opener. So not only did we have the emotions of losing that, we really wanted to play in front of our fans, and the girls wanted to be on campus. And so that was tough. It was definitely a lot of emotions. And then for me, it was probably probably took a week and a half or so. And then I kind of started changing my mindset a little bit, like, hey, let's stop thinking about what could have been and let's think about what was. Some of the moments throughout the year, awesome moments in practice where you're like, oh, this team has it, or the moments in the locker room. And then I simply just started to really, really miss them. And from the beginning, that's how they all felt. They didn't all have the same emotions as like being cheated. They just missed each other. I mean, we were so close. So we really kind of had to go through that. During all of that, we really took our coaching hats off. We didn't really talk a ton of softball. We just made sure they were on board with their classes and just talked about random stuff, just kind of trying to be a little bit more of a friend at the time. And then, this week, actually, we got into a little bit of softball stuff with exit meetings, but really we were just there for them as friends, and it was tough. But, now I think going into next year, I think it's going to be a lot of positives. We've got 3 of our 4 seniors coming back, 2 of the best hitters in the league. And so I think there's definitely a lot of positives. And the girls, they started picking up on the positives before I did, which is good because that was a big thing of our culture. So they learned a lot this year. But it was tough. But, we're in a really, really good place now. It just took a little bit of time.
Sure. And it's tough, but what it sounds like is going into next season, you as a staff and you as a team are going to be a lot closer, which will translate, I'm sure, on the field, and excited to see where that takes you all.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, your journey on becoming the head coach at Pitt State.
So I grew up in Kansas City, love Kansas City. And then I played basketball and softball at China Mission West. Kind of both of those programs, my freshman year, we weren't very good in either of them. And then by the time we hit my senior year, we make it to state, and just really, really good high school teams. And so that was kind of cool to see that transition, which is obviously what you have to do in college a lot. Then from there, I got recruited to go to Drury in Springfield, Missouri, and that was a really unique opportunity. We actually started up the program there. So from scratch, I think we had 11 or 12 freshmen and then 7 or 8 transfers. And so I was very fortunate to play for 4 years. And that helped me tremendously as a coach and really prepared me for on the field stuff for sure. I got to learn a lot about what doesn't work in a locker room. Our culture wasn't perfect when I was there. So that's, one thing that I really wanted to focus on when I got into college coaching. I started at the University of Indianapolis with Coach Frost, who is an absolute awesome, mentor and just coach for her girls and for her program. I really learned what culture is about there. I learned what it's like to compete, that we weren't necessarily missing skills or anything like that at Drury. We were just missing, a vision and being on the same page. And that's something that I learned right away with Coach Frost. She's a tremendous leader, knows what she wants and knows how to go get it. We were really successful, won 100 games, so it was a ton of fun too. So I think it's all pretty unique that your first 2 years of coaching, you get to be ranked in the top 5 in the country and win 100 games, and that I think that everyone knows it's a lot better when you win. So that was fortunate. Then actually, I think I was 22, 23 at the time. I became a head coach for the first time at a small NAIA in Wisconsin. And I learned who I don't want to be as a leader at times, and that's just as important who you don't want to be. I did a fantastic job on the field. We tripled our wins from the previous year. Our run differential was, it was like 100 or something. I don't remember the actual number, but did a really, really good job on the field. But I really struggled to lead them. And so then from there, I went on and became Matt Mundell's assistant at Evansville. And he's the opposite of me. He is a big teddy bear and is all about the girls and just really, really caring. And that's something that I've had to learn how to be. That was awesome to kind of be with him and learn my weaknesses. And I still talk to him probably every other day. And then obviously led me to Pitt and allowed all that stuff to kind of come together. And now we're here having this podcast.
Yeah, and you're back closer to your hometown. So it seems like it's all aligned for you. So what drove you to want to coach and continue the game at that position versus playing?
For me, I don't ever see myself like 8 to 5 behind a desk. That's really, honestly, that was kind of the hard part about the first part of the COVID thing. I was inside. I was like, this sucks. I want to be outside. I want to be moving. So I never really saw myself like that. And I did have a couple moments in college where I kind of started thinking about it. And I'd help my teammates. I knew a lot about the swing and, one day you should start to think about being a coach. And my mom made a comment about it. And then kind of from there, like I just started seeing the opportunity to help people and to see them grow, whether that was in the cages with my teammates and now with our girls. I love the aha moments. Those keep me going. I love that we get in the cage and we grind it out and I see them frustrated, but then all of a sudden it comes together. And just that feel. It's hard to describe, but I think you guys can understand that. Those aha moments are why I coach and seeing them develop on and off the field. One of our freshmen this year, really quiet kid coming in, and we did Desire, Vision, and Focus from John Gordon this year, and her thing was she wanted to become more outgoing. I mean, that's a bold thing from a small town kid that already wants to do that her freshman year, to really challenge herself. And we had this kind of mentorship type thing with baseball and volleyball, and she stood up and volunteered. She was the first one to volunteer in a room of her peers. It's like those moments are why I coach. Those are what I love, and obviously I love game day too. I'm not gonna lie. I love wins. I love wins, and I love competing and having someone in the other dugout thinking that you're not good enough and you get to go prove them wrong. But kind of definitely the development and then winning.
That's really cool. Just building on your journey, one quick question and then another follow-up question is, so you mentioned John Gordon and he's got a lot of awesome stuff. Is that a specific book? Is that like a an article. What was that resource that you guys used specifically by him?
We read the Energy Bus as a team.
Nice.
So we had actually read that my first year at UND, and that's what changed our culture. And going into this year, that's what we were missing. We didn't have a positive culture. We didn't have a culture that we were bringing out the best in each other. So going into the year on Tuesdays, we read it for most of the fall semester till we got done with it, and it was awesome. Training Camp was probably my favorite book from him, though.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, but the Energy Bus is what fit us and what was our need, and our girls really, really bought into it, and it was a lot of fun.
That's cool. That's awesome. Appreciate you sharing that, tangible resource, because I think John Gordon, for anybody listening that doesn't know John Gordon, I mean, look him up, especially if you're in a coaching parent leadership position. He's got really good stuff. So appreciate you sharing that. And one thing that I think is so cool and interesting about your journey is you've coached at NAIA, at D2, and at the D1 levels in various capacities. And so we have, our audience, it's, people all over the map. It's 10-year-olds that are playing C-level ball. It's, people that are really shooting for college. They know they want to play softball in college. But could you speak a little bit to kind of some of the value and the cool things that you experienced at the different levels? Because obviously College World Series, we see that on ESPN, that gets all the play. But NAIA, D2, all the levels provide some really cool experiences. So I didn't know if you could talk a little bit about your experience at the different levels and just try to encourage people through your experience that there's great college ball at, pretty much any level.
I think skills are skills. I think a swing's a swing. You're just dealing with different types of athletes. And really from an athleticism standpoint, where this is something that I've kind of started to really develop is, limitations within the body. And I think that you just have to change things a little bit to fit what their body allows them to do. You're still going to want them to have a power line. You're still going to want them to have X, Y, Z. But how am I going to get them there, the kid that's not as athletic? And I think with these travel ball teams, you're going to see that a lot, where you're going to have an elite athlete who's probably your best player. But you've got to have your kid who's not as athletic. You've got to be able to bring them up and teach them as well. So really just kind of finding what's best for the kid. And I think you still teach the same skills, but, how am I going to get their body to move better? And, that's something that's helped me a lot.
You're leading a program, and you mentioned you give lessons. So how do you have the energy to do both? Because running a program, you're wearing all of the hats, not just one. So where do you get that extra energy to conduct lessons?
There's some days it's exhausting. I've kind of limited how many kids I work with during the school year or the summer. In the past, pretty much if you want to work with me, I'll work with you. But I did kind of limit a little bit during the season because I didn't want to take away from our girls. And I didn't want to be, worn out by the time I got to them and stuff like that. But what I love about giving the lessons, and it actually can be very energizing at the same time, because you have so many of those aha moments in an hour session. And it's like, okay, this reminded me after a tough practice where I couldn't figure it out with our girls. And it's a good reminder of why you do what you do. And it really keeps you going. And honestly, you have to get back to the basics, because sometimes as coaches, we overcomplicate things. And there'll be times I'll be working with a kid in a lesson. I'm like, oh, well, probably if I would have just told X, Y, Z today, that same simple thing, instead of 17 sentences, maybe I would have got the same result. So it's definitely reminders. And I love growing the game. And I don't mind doing it. When I get married and have kids, I think it would be a little bit different. When it's just me, I'm going to give the game all that I have.
That's really cool. So you're coaching at a high level. There's a very small percentage of athletes that get a chance to play for your program or any other program at the D2 or the D1 or any collegiate level. And so as you're thinking about youth coaches, youth parents, youth players, you're doing lessons, which is awesome because it keeps you in the pulse of, where the youth are outside of just the recruiting side of things. Could you talk a little bit about some of the most important things, in your opinion, that players and parents and coaches at the youth levels should be focused on?
You need to really just focus on how the body moves and fundamentals, and you need to make practice fun. those are kind of the big things. I mean, you need to simply teach them how to play catch. It's not just going out and throwing a ball around. There's a skill set when it comes to playing catch. But I think at the youth level, you really need to let them be athletes. That if they want to throw from a low arm slot and figure out how their body moves and the timing of everything, let them do that. If they're going up the middle for a ball, instead of setting their feet, if they want to run through it and spin, let them run through it and spin. I think that you definitely need to allow them to be athletes, and definitely at the really, really young ages, make it fun. Play a game. For them, 8-year-olds, they're with their friends. They want to, that's why some of them are there, because they're with their friends. But, make it be fun, do competitions, figure out who your competitors are. And I think that's key, is to focus on the fundamentals, keep things simple, focus on what they'll do the majority of the time, and just kind of nail that stuff down.
That's awesome. And I know kind of building on that line of thought, some of what we talked about kind of in the pre-recording conversations was just some of your thoughts on high school ball and the role that should play in an athlete's development, because not to get into hot button topics, but club ball is super competitive, and then sometimes that competes with high school ball. So tell us a little bit more about where do you see high school baseball, or high school softball fitting into the development of athletes, regardless of whether or not they are going to play in college or not?
I think if you could play for your high school team, you shouldn't miss out on that opportunity. For those kids who are going to go on it and play in college, they've learned that they're representing something bigger than themselves, and that's something that can get missed at the college level, and that it makes it really, really important. So you're representing your community, you're representing the kids sitting next to you in your chemistry class, and I think that's just all about leadership, that you're understanding those things. I think it's important that they learn how they're probably the best player. I mean, most of the kids who are now playing for me were their best player on their high school team. But now they have to work with a kid who might not be as good. Maybe she's a really good athlete, but she's a star basketball player, but she needs some help with softball. Or maybe it's a kid who this is her last stop, but the sport means everything to her. So I'm going to bring her up. I'm going to help her. I'm going to mentor her. I'm going to and lead her. And I think that from a leadership standpoint, it's really important. These kids do play high school ball. And I think it's definitely a missed opportunity to grow as an individual. And like I said, to play for something bigger than yourself.
You hit the nail on the head with, you're representing your community. I mean, that's what you do when you go to college. And if they can build that inside them, that they're representing their community, then going into college, it's going to be even more special, and they're going to just have those leadership skills. So those are all great points about playing high school. So, you've touched on playing high school. You even mentioned how you were a multi-sport athlete. So are you an advocate for multi-sports as well as high school?
I absolutely prefer that my kids have played multiple sports. That maybe one of them is a true love, but really it's all about being a competitor. I wasn't the best basketball player, but I worked my tail off. I gave my team a chance to get better. And I love actually recruiting basketball players because they understand the importance of conditioning, and that when we do run and we do some of those things, it's really not a big deal to them. Or sometimes when you get just these people who only played softball, when we do run sprints, they're like, I don't understand. Well, basketball players get it. Or, if you got a track kid, now they've simply just worked on speed. But it's awesome from a competitive standpoint. I think that in college, the teams that are there at the end of the year have the best competitors. And I think that that's what you learn when you play multiple sports. Once again, getting back to how does the body move? I remember, my freshman year when we would run inside all the time and we do ladder suicide type stuff, and my footwork was on point. By the time I got to my senior year and I wasn't on the basketball court all the time, it's like, I'm so slow out of these turns. Like, what is going on? But that's just, I became a much better athlete on the basketball court. And I think it's important that these kids, work on themselves as just an athlete. And that's what multi-sports do, and obviously the competitive factor.
And would you say it also gives, it helps without the burnout factor too? I mean, if you're constantly playing the same sport year-round before you get to college, do you think that helps with the athlete not being burned out by the time they get to college?
Absolutely. If we throw a ball around for 365 days a year, it's going to be tough on our bodies. And you need a little bit of a mental break. And I think that's what playing the other sports, like you said, kind of does. And it helps with the burnout factor for sure. It's definitely a problem within our sport, that they go with the sport for too long. Well, let's take some time off and, let's just be a kid, and just become better athletes. Yeah. The burnout is definitely a tough thing in our sport right now.
And you mentioned teaching the kids how to play catch. Something you think is so simple and that they should know by the time they're in their second year of playing. So that's definitely an important thing that parents and coaches should focus on with their kids. But what else do you hope to see athletes, the skills that they have going into college, or that they should focus on while they're playing in the summer?
For like softball skills, or just softball skills?
Just in general, what do you think parents and coaches should focus on with their kids that want to pursue college?
I think it's important that these parents make sure that their kid is the one who is motivated. That it's not just the parent saying, okay, I've set up you with your pitching coach, I've set you up with your hitting coach, and the kid never goes out and practices. Well, if you are continually pushing them without them giving anything, now, like, let your kid come to you. Instead of saying, hey, after dinner, we're going to go hit off the tee for an hour, your kid should be coming to you. Hey, Mom, Dad, will you go work with me? Can I go over to so-and-so's house to hit with them and stuff? So I think that that's something that's really important, that these kids are self-motivated. I don't know if that directly answered your question, but
yeah,
that was kind of my train of thought there. That they need to be self-motivated, and parents need to make sure that's the case.
Absolutely. Do you think that it's okay to just play locally, or should these teams be traveling all over?
I think with these kids who are younger, let them just play locally, especially, some of these families don't have the same finances. Don't worry if you cannot, at the age of 10, that your kid is not traveling 3 hours every weekend. Let them just learn the game. Let them be with their friends. Let them get better. Now, maybe if they're a stud and, as they're getting close to their freshman year, maybe now you try and figure out something where they start traveling all the time. But there's nothing wrong with just getting really good around you. Travel ball. I obviously love it, and I go recruiting at it all the time, but you don't have to play on the top team to be recruited and to get better. If your talents are there, someone's going to find you. Look at The Last Dance, Scottie Pippen. He was an NAI player who was unrecruited, and he became one of the best players in the NBA over the time frame. Like, so if you're good at what you do, people are going to find you in some sense. So don't worry about not being able to be at the top tournament every single weekend. If finances and stuff like that are a problem, and especially at the young age, let them go be really, really good with the people around them.
I really appreciate the way you're coming at that, because I think we've played at the college level. It's college sports is a dream, right? I'd sign me up to go back like today if I could. But the other reality is, though, that it's not easy. Just because it's amazing doesn't mean that it's easy. And I just so appreciate what you're saying, because it just seems like if we're not developing a passion for the game, then just the enjoyment of the game itself, then I don't know anybody that's going to work hard enough to really maximize their ability if we're not developing that passion and that desire to go out there and play. And so having fun and focused on, developing, even if it's a culture of, 2 or 3 with the parents and their son or daughter, it's like, it's a culture of, we love this game and we want to work on it. That type of thing is going to play a huge role, because I'm sure you can speak to it. College sports is a long day. It's a fun day, but it's a long day. And if you don't want to be there, if you don't love what you're doing, then it's going to be really hard to play at the best of your ability.
Yeah, absolutely. Passion. I use that word all the time with our girls. And I think that's an awesome thing that college athletics give. So obviously us 3, we're really passionate about softball and baseball. Otherwise we wouldn't be on this call right now. Right. But I think what's unique about my opportunity as a college coach is their first true love, their first passion was softball, and that's what brought us together, right? Well, now I get to help them find their next passion, their passion of being a teacher, of being a doctor, whatever it may be. So that's a cool thing that I like about college athletics is we all have this one passion, and it brought us together. Now, what am I going to do? How am I going to help you to get that passion? So it's the same thing as you're talking about, passion of softball. Now it's a passion of my career, and back to the burnout. If you don't have passion for it, you're not gonna make it, and that's as close to fact as you're probably gonna get.
And with all this said, a lot of that is building that culture. And, that culture starts from the top. So it starts with you. So how do you build your culture? How do you focus on the girls and create that positive, the passion, the culture going into season after season?
I think with culture is you got to know where you want to be. So for us, we knew going into this year, kind of how we already talked about, that we've got to come together in a positive environment. We've got to create this, and we've got to create something where we bring out the best in people. So you got to know where you want to go, and then you got to figure out how am I going to do that? Kind of what are my step by step. So for us, it was to find the book, and I think it's important that you kind of sometimes bring in outside things to help. I could have said the same 10 points, the same 10 rules, but it's gonna hold a lot more from someone else. And it kind of giving you this landscape basically. So I think it's important to know where you're going, and then let's establish how we're going to get there.
So thinking about the culture of the Pitt State Gorillas, you have a player, you have an athlete that spends 2, 3, 4 years with you, and thinking about the culture and how you have a heart for investing in your players on and off the field. What are some of the most important things that you hope somebody walks away with after spending 2, 3, or 4 years in the Gorilla program?
What's true to me is hard work. And that's something that our girls appreciate. So when they leave this program, they're going to understand what hard work is, what dedication is, what it's like to buy into something. And those are things that whatever career that they go into, or, even just having a family, okay, it's hard work. Okay. So, you do work an 8 to 5. And then you have to go home and you have to cook and you have to clean and you have to figure out how to do laundry, right? All of that's really hard. But someone who's determined, who is hardworking, is going to make it, is going to figure it out. You know what I mean? So like for us, it's a lot about hard work. And, when I talk to coaches, and they're all like, oh, this kid's a hard worker. And every time I tell them, well, I'll determine that when potentially when she gets here. And then I'm going to ask her to work even harder. And that's kind of like who I am as a hard worker. So that's definitely something that I want our kids coming away with, is a sense of hard work, and that it's worth it. We're not just working hard to work hard. We're working hard to get somewhere.
So you're the head coach now. So that means that the buck stops with you. So ultimately, that's your job description, is to, be the CEO, be in charge of everything. One of the things we talked about is the importance of assistant coaches. And so you've been an assistant coach, and now you're a head coach. So what role do you see your assistant coaches playing in your success? How has that impacted you as a coach? And obviously it's super helpful to learn about it from your experience, but I'm also just picturing the parent coaches that need help. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the role that assistant coaches play in your program and how they've helped you. And then, that way maybe there's some takeaways on the youth side for how head coaches that are busy and volunteers and have families can utilize assistant coaches to help them as well.
I think for me, and what's worked for Coach Jen and I, is we're both equally as passionate and equally invested. So on a college level, I think that's something that is a priority, and that you can balance each other out. And on day one in her interview, I said, this is our plan. This is what we have to fix going into next year. And from that day on, she understood what our journey was going to be like, or where we were headed. So I think it's important that you map that out, that you find someone at the college level who is just as invested. It doesn't work if the head coach is all gung-ho and the assistant only wants to was only 20% invested. So that's something very important from the college level. I think from the youth level, I think what is important is that you let them do things. They don't just need to stand there. They need to add value. They need to help you. If you're the head coach of a youth team and you're an offensive minded person, well, why don't you let one of them call the pitches? So then you can focus on the offense and kind of game plan for that. And then this person gets to call the pitches and take that off your plate. So allow them to help you and to take things off the plate. And then you could see things as a whole, like you're talking about, the CEO. It's important for head coaches to be able to step back and see things from a bigger scale. If you are in every single thing, the little tiny details, you're going to miss the big picture. And I think that's important for head coaches to be able to step back and see things from a big picture. And that's an area I had to really, really work on, because I can be a micromanager and I go down to the inches. And so that's the thing that helped us this year is I stepped back and kind of started looking at things from a bigger whole. And I think that's important in both the youth and the travel ball. And I'm really fortunate to have my assistant coach, Jen. She's awesome. She is just as invested as I am. And she's really good with the social media stuff. She's better with feelings in a sense. I'm getting better, but I'm pretty stoic and stuff like that. And she'll dance with them before the games and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm ever going to get there doing the whole pre-dance routine thing before the game, but that's something that she enjoys, and our girls feed off of that. So find someone who can be on board with you, but can also kind of cover up some of your weaknesses. And I'm fortunate to find someone who does that for our program and allows me to step back and not be so cloud-minded sometimes.
Is there anything else that you would promote or, hope that the coaches, youth coaches and parents, even players do in the summertime, during the year? Like, is there anything else that you want to promote to them?
I think it's important. Like, if you want to play in college, there'll be a spot for you somewhere. Say you're an art major and you have to dedicate all of your time to that. Okay, so you probably don't want to go play D1, but that doesn't mean you have to give up the game. Maybe you go find a Division III that has an excellent program where the time constraints are a lot different. Or if you're not ready for Division II, for Division I, go to a JUCO. There's a spot for you. You got to go find it. Now, sometimes that means you're not going to have it all. Maybe you're not going to be able to have the school in your backyard. Maybe you're going to have to go a little bit farther, or maybe you end up paying a little bit more because the school doesn't have the same funding. But if you truly want to play college softball, there'll be an avenue for you. But you gotta go find it. And don't wait for people to always come to you. If you aren't as talented, go find that school, do your research. I think that's important. There's a spot for you somewhere.
So one of the things that I think is really encouraging, just getting to know you and connect with you, is you've talked a lot about how you've been intentional with your growth as a coach, and you're trying to directly and indirectly, you're setting an example, because if you're trying to learn and grow as a coach, then that it's easier to ask your players, your assistant coaches, to learn and grow, because you're right there with them saying, hey, I'm good at this, I'm not good at that, I'm working on how I can be better. Could you speak a little bit to like how communication and specifically vulnerability has made a difference for you as a coach in terms of leading your program, connecting with your players? Because I think, we were talking about that earlier. I'd love for you to share more about how that's played a role in your coaching development.
Yeah, I think I'm very fortunate to have players in our locker room and administrators that have allowed me to make some mistakes and to continue to get better. Just like when it comes to our girls in the cages, it's not about where we are in August, it's where we are at the end of the year. And that's something that I know I've done a really, really good job of this year. And I know our girls feel that who I was at the end of our season last year isn't the same coach that I am right now talking with you guys. And I think that's important, that we all just continue to grow. And, throughout my this isn't just coaching, but even just my life really in general. Vulnerability is not something I'm very good at. It is scary. It is I don't even know. You could throw out 1,000 words and I hate it. But if you want to be a good coach, you also have to address some of your weaknesses. That's one thing throughout our year that I tried to do a better job of, is being vulnerable. I've never been afraid to say when I've been wrong, but I've been afraid to share more feelings type stuff. But I'm thankful that we have a group of girls who've allowed me to do that, and I didn't feel judgment back. And I think that's important. I think that's one thing that the book has really given us is to hear people out and to create all that positivity. So I'm fortunate that our girls made me feel comfortable to share those things. So looking back on my year, I think it's kind of backwards to one thing that John Gordon does. You're supposed to pick a word in the beginning of the year and focus on that. But if I look back on our year, I think that's one area that I really, really excelled at and bettered myself. And something that I'm proud of myself for is being more vulnerable for our girls, creating a place where I can share some feelings. And a lot of times it's, this is what I'm thinking. I don't have all of the thoughts. It's not perfect, that sort of thing. And just sharing more emotion with them. I'm always passionate and emotional about the game, but now I was more emotional in the locker room and kind of some stuff like that. And I think our girls really appreciated that.
So what I think, Matt, we're hearing is that potentially next season she could be out there dancing with the girls before the game starts.
I tell the girls all the time, I'll laugh at them and I'll do all that stuff, but I feel like I'm very athletic, and I can pick up a ball and I can do XYZ. I can play racquetball. I can do, all these different sports. But that is one area where my athleticism really hits a brick wall.
So you're not going to be flossing with them anytime soon, or whatever the new dancing lingo is?
Got my back there.
Teamwork.
Yeah.
That's great. So we can touch a little bit about recruiting. What is your philosophy on recruiting, in a sense, on, we talked about high school, and a lot of youth coaches try and push only travel ball and not high school. But when we were talking earlier this week, a reason why you like high schools because you'll go to the games. And so can you touch a little bit on recruiting and being there, watching them for our listeners and what that looks like?
Yeah, I think a big thing for me in the recruiting process, and something that I really try and do, is I try to show them who I am as a coach. I don't want to give you this sense of something that I'm not in the recruiting process. I want to be genuine. So that's the reason why I go to their high school events and I do some of that stuff. I try and be there as much as I can, because kind of how we just touched on, words I'm not very good at. But being there for someone is how I show that I care. So in the recruiting process, I make as many games as I can. Even if it's an 8 a.m. game, I'm probably going to be there, that kind of stuff. So I think it's important that you do that. And I think the kids that I've had the most success with, that's something that they very much appreciated, that was important to them. So now we've built something where what's important to me and what I'm good at is now important to you. And it's just a really, really good fit. It's a two-way street. And I think that's important in the recruiting process. Some advice for kids out there. You need to go see the coach in their element with their team, at a game or whatever it may be, because you need to understand who they are as a coach and as a person. So if you're someone who doesn't like to get yelled at and the coach is gonna ream you up and down on the field, well, don't go play for them. They're not just gonna change that drastically. If that is a turnoff for you, then don't go there. If you're someone who, doesn't like to be pushed in the weight room, then don't come to my program. And I think you need to find the coach that's going to bring out the best in you. And yeah, people are going to make mistakes and stuff like that, but you need to find out what coaching style works for you. And that should be part of your search as well. But, for me, I like to just show them as much as who I am in the recruiting process as possible. And recruiting is something that I very much love. And I can't wait to be back on the field whenever it gets safe and to go out and recruiting. And I don't know when that'll be or with all this situation, but I definitely miss it for sure.
I love the point you made the player going to see the coach in their element? Because the coaches are seeing you in your element all the time. And so the player only sees the coach when they're level-headed and everything's going right, and they're just kind of sitting back and enjoying watching the game. And so really seeing them in their element to see if they get upset or they have triggers where they yell at the players. I think that's huge. That's a great point, Coach Balazs.
Same thing with just go see what the structure of a practice is. Obviously kind of during the season, practices are going to be a little bit different with workloads and stuff, but, go to a fall practice that is going to be a heavier day for them. Is that something that you want to put yourself through? Do you want to be pushed to the level? I mean, we've got some practices in the fall that are tough. I mean, we don't go for 4 hours, but they're tough and they're demanding. So I think it's important that you kind of know what the coach is going to ask of your body and the intensity too.
So while we're talking about recruiting, thought we'd spend a couple more minutes kind of in the nuts and bolts, and then we can kind of zoom back out. So recruiting in 2020 and 2021 is obviously different than it was even 2-3 years ago with technology, with video. There's a million different showcase options out there. There's a bunch of people that are testing various things. Could you spend a minute or two talking about what you think is most important for an athlete to be focused on, number one, in their development? So we talked about playing catch and being an athlete. So that's part of it, but also are videos helpful to you as a coach? Like, what are some things that parents and coaches especially can be thinking about how they can promote their athletes in the right way, in a way that's going to connect with you as a college coach, not necessarily in a way that is either not going to help or potentially even push you away?
Yeah, I think we definitely need video. Everyone's going to be a little bit different as to, do they want game film, do they want practice film? Every coach is going to be a little bit different, so I don't have a perfect answer there. But we definitely need to see video. Show me something in that video that makes me want to come watch you. I was watching a video the other day, and the kid just wasn't playing very hard. Well, why would you put that in there? You know what I mean? So make sure you're putting the stuff that's going to catch our attention. And for me, when I see an outfielder diving, if I see them doing XYZ in the video, I'm intrigued. So put something that's going to intrigue a college coach, and know kind of what direction that coach wants to go to. But especially right now, we need video, and it's a downtime for us to be on our computers and stuff like that. I think I just got sidetracked. What was can you rephrase your question?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking I don't think I
answered it.
No, you did answer, because the video is obviously important, but just thinking about just the recruiting journey in terms of player development and communicating themselves, promoting themselves to college coaches. What are some of the things that are important for people to be considering? Because we've seen good videos, we've seen bad videos, we've seen good emails, and we've seen bad emails. So what are some of the ways that they can be communicating with college coaches to put themselves out there in a way that is going to help them and not potentially hurt them or delay them?
I think another thing that I do like, if it's a lot of short clips, and actually I just talked with the 21 probably a week and a half ago, who I had seen her video probably 6 months ago, and I was like, I don't think that kid has what it takes, from a skill set yet. She resent it to me, some new video, and I saw the development in her. And that's something that's really important. Like we've touched on, and that's my coaching style, right? To develop them in the skill sets. So just because someone doesn't reply right away doesn't mean that you can't get there. And, don't be afraid to, if it's small clips, this is November 10th, 2019. Now I have a clip of, May 1st, 21. And now I've seen that, wow, this kid has worked really hard and got herself in a better position. And that's intriguing, so, don't be afraid to keep sending stuff and show the growth that you've had. That's really intriguing to some coaches like me.
It'll show their work ethic too. I mean,
yeah.
And you're all about the hard work. And so it shows that they're putting in the work to be better and that they're passionate about their craft. And like all of us, when you're passionate about your craft, you do whatever you can to be better and be the best at it. Well, Coach Balazs, we have talked about all sorts of stuff for our listeners today. Is there anything else that you want to tell them or give a shout out or really leave them with?
I think another thing with coaching for these youth people, you know, don't go in with a personal agenda that just because that's how you were coached or, you know, that's what you want to do, that doesn't mean it's going to work. So I think that you really kind of need to step back. Like, what do my athletes want from me? There's going to be some stuff that you're going to go with what you know, because it's going to work, but don't be afraid to kind of look at it from their eyes and make some adjustments and kind of meet them in the middle with some stuff. You know, some of the best coaches out there, they've been doing this for a really long time, and they're not the same person as they started, and they're not on their own personal agenda. They're really adjusting and growing with the generations, you know. And I think that that's important. It's not always what you want to do as a coach. It's what's going to work, what's going to bring out the best in my players and our program. And it takes reflection, and it takes a lot of giving.
I love that. Couldn't have said better. It's all about the kids. It's why they're out there. It's why we're out there. It's why we do what we do. It's for the kids. So take our agenda out of it.
Well, Coach, we really appreciate your time. You know, it's exciting to know that someone like you is involved in the game, and, you know, you love to compete. Like, let's be honest, there's a scoreboard for a reason, right? Let's go score those runs and win the games. But there's also so much more to that. And so I just wanted to, you know, acknowledge you for that, you know, on behalf of all of us, to thank you for your work, and thank you for how you care about the athlete, and not just as a person and not just as a player. And it's exciting stuff for the Pitt State Gorilla program, because you know, with you at the helm, I think that there's a lot of cool stuff coming in the future for your program. So is there anything, point our listeners to, if they want to follow you or follow your assistant coach, just kind of the stuff you have going, you know, personally and as a program, like how can people find out more about you and what you guys are doing?
I think follow us on Twitter is kind of the easiest thing. Coach Jin does a good job with our Pitt State softball account. We've got obviously some graphics and people posting things. So definitely Twitter is probably the easiest, and then pittstategorillas.com. A lot of cool stuff on there, a lot of stories right now, which is pretty cool. But, you know, probably Twitter and our school website to learn a lot about Pitt State and our program.
Wonderful. Well, we can't wait to see you back out on the field, and stay safe, stay well, and work on those dance moves.
Thanks. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. I'm working on my golf game right now. That's well, now that I'm not with the girls, that's my focus, not the dance moves.
Awesome.
But I appreciate you guys having me. I think this is another learning opportunity for me, and to share about to share to everyone what Pitt State is about. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you, and we'll have to have you back down the road for a round 2 episode.
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. Thank you, Coach. We appreciate you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Wow, Coach Balazs' passion for the development and hard work, just if that doesn't get you wanting to go out and start practicing right now, I don't know what will. She's fantastic, and can't wait to see them on the field when we're able to be back out there. So our quick win that we have for you guys today is Coach Balazs mentioned it in our conversation, the Energy Bus by John Gordon, and also the Training Camp by John Gordon. Those are 2 books that you'll want to go pick up. And Matt, you have personally read the Training Camp. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so John Gordon, I mean, his books are short, so, you know, we want these quick wins to be practical for anybody listening. So his books are short, but they're powerful. And so John Gordon's got a bunch of books out there. Training Camp, just talking about what separates the best from the rest. And then the Energy book is awesome for teams and cultures, because it just talks about the type of energy you're bringing to your team, whatever that team is, on or off the field, and how that energy just makes a huge impact on your performance. So our quick win for you guys is we'd love for you to go check out Amazon. This isn't an affiliate link or anything like that. We just think it's a great, valuable resource for you. And if you're looking for a way to speak to your culture on your team and, like Coach Balazs talked to, kind of point to a resource that's different than just the coach saying something else, then just definitely go check out John Gordon, get the Energy Bus, get Training Camp, really get any book that he's written, because they're all fantastic and they'll help you help your teams take their seasons to the next level, because culture is so important.
If you want an update when our next episode is out, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you have some topics you'd like us to talk about, drop that in the comment section. We want this to be the most meaningful podcast for you, so let us know what we can do to provide you meaningful information and what you want to hear. You can put them in, like I said, in the comments, or tweet them. Our handle is @hotcorner_pod. And we got to give a big thank you to Cole, our producer. Thank you to Easton, who just made a hot bat hotter, the Ghost, and our MSP staff. And a huge thank you to you, the listener. So until next time, remember that we are better together, and we'll talk to you next week.